So Olaplex is facing a lawsuit. We're going to talk about it in this video. Olaplex at this point has become somewhat of a household name. It's popular all over social media, lots of celebrities endorsing it. It's a line of hair care products that contains an ingredient, bis-aminopropyl diglycol dimaleate. This ingredient works to repair broken disulfide bonds in the hair that can come about as a result of bleaching the hair, dyeing the hair, using a lot of heat styling tools, or just being really aggressive with your hairbrush. And it's those broken disulfide bonds in the hair proteins that can contribute to frizz, breakage, and just overall a brittle appearance to the hair. This technology reapproximates those bonds, helping the hair to be smoother, more manageable. But as of last week, 28 women have filed a lawsuit against Olaplex in the California District Court. Claims include that the products have caused more than half of their hair to fall out, with frank bald spots in some cases, as well as scalp sores, extreme itch, yeast infections, bacterial infections, frank sores, as well as brittle, frizzy, and overall dull appearing hair. The plaintiffs are narrowing in on two ingredients in particular, which we'll talk about: Lilial as well as Panthenol. Now, Lilial, a few months ago, there were a lot of TikToks being made about this ingredient because in the EU, its usage has been banned. Lilial is the trade name for butylphenylmethylpropionol, and it's essentially a fragrance ingredient. Now, as of March 1st, 2022, this ingredient has been categorized as a mutagenic, carcinogenic, and reprotoxic Category 1B substance under the EU and Great Britain classification, labeling, and packaging regulations. The problem with this regulation is that it's talking about potentially hazardous outcomes of a particular substance at really extreme concentrations, nothing that would ever be used in a personal care product. The personal care product industry is regulated and they have to demonstrate safety of their ingredients. Just because something ends up being carcinogenic in an animal model at extremely high doses doesn't necessarily mean that that translates into a toxic effect when used in appropriate concentrations in personal care products that have a track record of demonstrated safety in use in actual humans. I mean, this is the equivalent of banning water as an ingredient because it's known to cause drowning. It doesn't take into account whether or not the risk is actually relevant in the concentrations that are being used in personal care products. So if you have bought a product that has Lilial and you've been using it, you don't need to worry that it is harmful to your health, and you don't need to throw it in the trash. The product will have undergone rigorous safety assessment. That's what's required in the personal care cosmetic industry. However, Lilial, it is fragrance, and you can develop an allergy to fragrance. As I frequently point out, it is a relatively common allergen, the most frequent allergen in personal care products. So yes, it absolutely is possible that these individuals are allergic to Lilial. They've had an adverse reaction leading to a scalp dermatitis. The scalp dermatitis potentially could be so intense that it's caused a lot of hair breakage, hair loss. That is a possibility. But does that make Olaplex at fault? No, because you can develop this type of reaction to really any personal care product that has fragrance in it. Fragrances are so widespread in personal care products, especially in hair care products. For those who truly have an allergy, it can actually be very challenging to find fragrance-free hair care products, as many of you out there who are allergic to fragrance know. If these individuals truly are allergic, which would need to be demonstrated by, say, patch testing, if they truly are allergic to this ingredient, well, then it's not necessarily Olaplex. Pretty much any brand that has fragrance in it likely can cause this problem for the individual. What fragrance component they're reacting to, if it is the Lilial, probably will show up in other personal care products as well as household products, things like cleaning sprays, laundry detergents. As a precaution, Olaplex went ahead and removed this ingredient just to be on the safe side. But to be clear, it's a safe ingredient. Unless you have developed an allergy to Lilial, there's no reason to fear it or to avoid it. Only those who have an allergy, a sensitivity to the ingredient need to avoid it. The levels that you are being exposed to in personal care products are negligible, and what is the impetus for the ban is often rooted in animal studies where they're using large amounts and they're exposing the animal to that particular ingredient in a way that would never be such in a personal care product. Like, we're talking mega high doses that they're injecting into the animal, and not to mention, animal studies are not necessarily indicative of what's going to happen in humans, let alone when we're talking about things just coming in contact with the skin, which, as a reminder, is a barrier. If this were a one-off new ingredient, I would say, yeah, I guess I can see an abundance of caution, but it's been in personal care products for a long time with no evidence of true harm to human health other than the possibility of someone developing an allergy to it, which you can develop an allergy to pretty much any ingredient. The other ingredient that the plaintiffs have concern about is Panthenol. Now, Panthenol is a B vitamin, but it's widely used not only in hair care products, but in skincare products because it is moisturizing. It's a hygroscopic, it helps improve the water content in the skin. And it is a very low risk ingredient for you becoming allergic to. I mean, of course you can develop an allergy, like I said, to anything, but Panthenol, it's pretty low risk. Contact dermatitis to Panthenol is very rare. Very rare, very unusual. For the most part, it's a very helpful moisturizing ingredient in personal care products. I did see some mention too from the plaintiffs that they had some concerns around potentially degrading into benzene, which of course is a carcinogen. If this were true, I imagine that the amount that you are exposed to is very, very negligible. We've talked about benzene detection in personal care products on this channel before. It is not something that is associated with harm to human health in these very low trace amounts. So keep that in mind. I'm not sure where they're coming from with this, but that was one concern that they raised. Let's talk about the bacterial infections that they claim. Now, I don't know what bacterial infections they have. Whenever there's a lawsuit like this, plaintiffs have some problems that have developed, but we don't really get the nitty-gritty details of their medical history and what the actual diagnosis is. So I'm not sure what bacterial infection they had. Are they saying that the products were contaminated? That seems highly unlikely given how rigorous cosmetic standards are in the personal care industry for demonstrating the safety of the product in terms of a bacterial contamination standpoint. That being said, if a product is very irritating to the scalp and leads to dermatitis, maybe causing the person to scratch a lot. And a lot of these people did note that it caused itch, pretty notable itch for them. Well, the action of scratching and inflammation makes the scalp more amenable to the introduction of bacterial organisms that could lead to a scalp folliculitis for sure. But we don't really know that that was the course with this. To be clear, I'm merely guessing here as to what is going on with these women. We will never know. These are possibilities, but I'm not their doctor, and so we don't know what their diagnosis truly is and how they acquired these problems. They also mention yeast infections. Now, I'm not sure what yeast they're referring to. It would be very unusual for Candida yeast to develop on the scalp from a personal care product. I mean, that would be, unless these people are immunosuppressed, it's highly unusual for something of that sort to happen. So I doubt that's what they're talking about. Maybe they're talking about, when they're talking about yeast, maybe they're talking about seborrheic dermatitis. They did mention seborrheic dermatitis or concerns about seborrheic dermatitis, so maybe they're talking about that. And as a reminder, seborrheic dermatitis, aka dandruff, flaky scalp, that is often, that's related to an inflammatory response to Malassezia yeast, but Malassezia yeast are naturally present on everyone's skin, and seborrheic dermatitis is not really considered an infection per se, because again, we all have that yeast on the scalp. So I guess, you know, are they saying yeast infection when they mean aggravation of underlying seborrheic dermatitis or seborrheic dermatitis? I'm not sure. Again, I'm guessing here. They said they developed rashes, and they also said they developed open sores. Now, open sores certainly can develop if you are scratching a lot, for sure. And as I mentioned earlier, with ongoing itch and scratching, you can introduce bacteria into the scalp, and that can lead to a scalp infection. So one would expect that if these problems were arising, they would be more prominent on maybe like the sides of the face, the sides of the neck where your hair comes in contact, not so much the scalp as much. One would think, you know, if it's an allergy to the ingredients, you would expect to see these problems elsewhere. Plaintiffs also point out a concern that Olaplex contains non-water soluble ingredients that they feel are clogging the pores and leading to seborrheic dermatitis. And I am assuming they're referring to perhaps the silicones in Olaplex products. Now, silicones, they're safe for the hair. What they do is they provide slip and lubrication to the hair strands, but in some people they can lead to a buildup that could contribute to breakage, especially in certain hair types. And it would be highly unusual though for silicones in hair care products to end up causing seborrheic dermatitis on the scalp, because silicones, they're actually not very irritating to the skin. They're frequently found in skincare products. Silicones as an underlying trigger or cause for seborrheic dermatitis, it's really not something that we see. The plaintiffs also allege that they felt Olaplex was very dismissive of their hair loss concerns, saying that, you know, it's normal to lose hairs every day. It is normal to lose about 100 to 200 hairs a day. But if you are getting more than that or a lot of breakage, I do think that it is worthwhile taking a look at your hair care products to see if they aren't maybe drying your hair out or causing brittleness. But everyone's hair is so different that for a hair care product to warn consumers of that, it's very unusual. That being said, you know, definitely worth taking them seriously in terms of their hair loss concerns. Hair loss always needs to be taken seriously, but I truly wonder what exactly their hair loss or hair concern diagnosis is. Again, I'm not their doctor. We don't know their medical history. That's going to be really important. Some of them allege that they developed frank bald patches. Well, did they develop alopecia areata, an autoimmune hair loss? We do see that a fair amount in people, and it can all of a sudden you develop a bald patch. It has to do with your immune system attacking the hair follicles. It has nothing to do with the hair care products that you're using. There's also a hair loss condition that can have little pus bumps associated with it called central centrifugal cicatricial alopecia. Very challenging hair loss disorder for patients, and that is one where certain hair care products that are irritating definitely can aggravate that condition. So I can see perhaps it would make sense that these products could be aggravating that type of hair loss condition. As far as an increase in hair shedding, that would be unusual to see from a hair care product. Usually an increase in hair shedding reflects something going on internally. For example, maybe you had a viral illness, you developed a fever, or you were pregnant, you delivered a baby, you were breastfeeding, you were on a new medication. I mean, there's so many more internal things that trigger increased hair shedding. It's known as a telogen effluvium. In fact, COVID is known to cause a telogen effluvium that is pretty profound. And I will note that there seemed to be an uptick in interest and promotion of Olaplex products during the stay-at-home time and throughout the pandemic. So maybe Olaplex could be guilty by association in some cases of increased hair shedding. Maybe somebody had COVID and they are now developing the post-COVID hair loss, which, as a side note, I have a whole video on that. Definitely check it out. And maybe Olaplex is just kind of guilty by association there, because that hair shedding, the increase in hair shedding, it appears about 3 months after the fact. So you may not make the connection that it was something else, and you may have recently started using Olaplex around the time that the shedding starts and you're linking the two together, but it really has nothing to do with Olaplex or any hair care product for that matter. I do think that these individuals, their hair loss concern needs to be taken seriously, and they need to have, be evaluated by a board certified dermatologist to truly know what's going on. Otherwise, how do you know that it's the products? You really don't, and otherwise it's just guilty by association, which is very easy to happen for a hair care product or any personal care product. Now, the last thing that they brought up, which I really do think bears mentioning, is they pointed out concerns that these products were being so hyped on social media by not only influencers, but by celebrities like I think Kim Kardashian. And they noted that they felt like perhaps there was some degree of failure to properly disclose paid promotion. Yeah, that is definitely a valid criticism, something that should be explored. I'm not saying that I believe Olaplex is guilty of doing influencer paid promotion and, you know, signing off on influencers not disclosing their advertisements properly. I'm not saying that, but if the plaintiffs feel that that was going on, they definitely, you know, it's definitely something valid to bring up 100%, because failure to disclose paid advertisement is a violation of FTC guidelines. And you know, I can definitely see how as a consumer you would be livid if you saw this product being promoted by an influencer that you look up to, and they made it seem as though they went out and purchased the product with their own money and that they were using it and, you know, genuinely loved it, but in reality, behind the scenes, they were either gifted the product and they didn't reveal it to you, and or they are actually being paid to promote it. Unfortunately, you know, I do paid promotion, as you guys know, here on YouTube, over on Instagram, over on my TikTok, I do paid ads. I 100% always disclose when I am being paid to talk about something and it's paid promotion, because I want you guys to know that it is paid promotion first and foremost. And second of all, it's illegal not to. And third of all, the brands that I work with, in the contract, that's always there in the contract that ads must be disclosed. Like, so it would be, not only would I be violating the FTC guidelines, but it would be in violation of my contract with these brands. But I can just tell you, you know, in my experience working with brands, it would be, I don't know, I find it hard to believe that brands actually would co-sign on an advertisement, paid advertisement, in which the influencer was not properly disclosing their relationship. But, you know, I have heard that it allegedly happens. I don't have proof that it does, but I have heard allegedly that it has happened, you know, maybe more recently, but I don't understand how it happens, because not only, like I said, is it a violation of FTC guidelines, but it would be, at least the contracts that I have, it'd be in violation of that. Plus, I mean, I don't know, it's like, why not disclose? I don't understand why you would not disclose. I mean, whenever you put yourself out there, you're going to get feedback, criticism. And, you know, maybe they don't want the criticism of, oh, I don't like sponsored content. I mean, that just comes with putting yourself out there. There's always going to be people who don't like it. So to not disclose in an effort to evade that criticism just seems like, I don't know, I don't get that. But I'm telling you guys this because I just find it really hard to believe that a brand would sign off on. So like when you do a sponsored post, you create the content and you actually send it to the brand. They have to approve it before you post it. That's also in the contract. They have to approve it. You can't just create it and post it. They have to approve it. And it has to have, you also have to send them the caption and all the hashtags that you're going to use and all of that stuff. So it's always in the contract that you're going to disclose, and it's frequently outlined in the contract exactly all of the ways they want you to disclose it. To use the tools that the individual app has, like YouTube has that little box that I check that says this video's got paid promotion, and over on Instagram and TikTok they have the paid promotion headers that you need to activate, and then it's always hashtag ad in the caption, and it's always it's often on the screen. It's also on the screen, and it's mentioned verbally. I mean, there are a lot of check marks that go into it, and the brands outline those check marks in the contract. So I don't understand how they make it through the approval process from the brand without those check marks. I know very recently there was a beauty guru on TikTok who did what was an ad, and it was not disclosed in the beginning properly, and then it later on was disclosed. And I do know that it appears as though that does happen, but in my experience working with brands, and I've been doing YouTube now for over 6 years, Instagram and now TikTok for a couple of years, I do not see how that happens. In fact, many of the brands that I work with, not only is there somebody in like their social media department that I work with that is responsible for approving my content, but after they approve it, they actually send it to a legal team, and a legal team approves it. And then I'm allowed to make sure I'm not saying anything that is, misleading, or like making a drug claim when we're talking about a skincare product. So I just find it very unusual that this is happening, but I guess it does. I guess it all depends on who you work with. So those are the claims that the plaintiffs are making. Now, here's the thing, we'll never know if Olaplex is truly causing problems for these people, or if they have some other type of hair loss and Olaplex is merely guilty by association. We will never know. I will remind you that this kind of lawsuit happens a lot, right? Since I've been on YouTube, how many hair care product lawsuits have we gone through? Diva Curl a few years ago, very similar claims. Tresemme, very similar claims. OGX, similar claims. And we never get any answers. Were these actually problematic products? Who knows? Because again, we're not their doctors. We don't have insight into their medical history, but their concerns do need to be taken seriously. But whether or not it's actually these products, I'm doubtful, honestly. I'm honestly doubtful. Let me know in the comments though, have you ever used Olaplex? Was it as good as it's hyped up to be? Did it help you out? Yeah, let me know in the comments how your experience with it went, but hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.